For over 10 years, I was a Unity stan. Back in the early 4.0 days, I loved making small projects, dreaming of one day creating a fully fledged MMORPG real-time fully immersive VR sim. Although what I usually made was just GUI menus and what I would call 2D endurance games.
Go on, you can do it! You can do it! You were so close!
A decade or so later, I sat down to make my first fully commercial Steam game. Having a clear vision of what I wanted to make, along with the many years of experience I had using the Unity engine, at the start I made some pretty decent progress. Unfortunately, however, by this stage of time, the cracks in Unity's foundations were beginning to show. From the new updates making longer reload and compile times, with every feature being either deprecated or in preview, or the fact that every new announcement seemed to step further away from supporting game developers and more towards subscription methods and services targeted towards corporate enterprise. One fateful night, however, when I was working late on my game, before my full-time job the next morning, news broke out, and the dev community online exploded. I think the events that followed are pretty well known in the game dev community, so I won't go over them again, but after much consideration, thinking of my current project, along with where I wanted to go in my career as a game developer, I decided to drop Unity as my go-to game engine. I saw a lot of developers, especially in the YouTube space, pick up Godot. I think it's a great game engine, and I tried picking it up, but it just didn't mesh well with me or the project at the time. I actually tried a lot of different game engines, and after trying a lot of underdogs, I made the decision to switch to Unreal. But the question I want to answer in this video is, do I regret it? I've collected my 5 most common questions asked to me since switching to Unreal. In this video, I plan to go over my thoughts and experiences with each question and hopefully explain to you in a satisfying manner if I regret switching from Unity to Unreal. The first and most common question I get asked is it hard to learn Unreal Engine? And broadly, no. There is plenty of documentation and tutorials for switching and learning Unreal Engine. There's even documentation that explains to Unity devs how to switch to Unreal if you're coming from that engine. Quite a few years back, I actually tried to learn Unreal Engine, and one of the things that it really lacked that I needed at the time was YouTube tutorials. But about 10 months ago, when I switched to Unreal Engine 5, there was some really good YouTube tutorials that not only walked through the engine, but also helped me understand the fundamentals of things like interactions, raycasting, interfaces, enums, like blueprints explaining NPC state machine, which is the main reason why I actually switched to Unreal. And there's some really in-depth tutorials, not only done by Epic Games and Unreal Engine themselves, which have like full-on 2-hour-long sessions explaining core methods and going through a whole bunch of different information. There's some also really good short, bite-sized tutorials on how to get started using it. And of course, as well, with a lot of the Unity devs jumping off board, there was some really great resources and websites and Twitter threads that were available to me to kind of get a better understanding on how to use Unreal and kind of a few of the gotchas if you're switching to Unity and Unreal, some things you should be aware of as a dev. There were also some really helpful, and what I did was printed out cheat sheets, and I'll link them in the description. You can print them out. I had them on my desk for quite a while. It helped me a lot to kind of refresh my memory on certain things. So if I was figuring out a system in my game, I could look at the cheat sheet and go, okay, I currently have an actor system and I should, interfaces, that's right, I'll use an interface for this. So broadly speaking, no, it's not hard to learn Unreal. I think it's around the same level of difficulty that it was to learn Unity back in the day, because the tutorials now with YouTube and even the forums as well are quite flooded with information that you can learn lots of things, which is good. But specifically, yes, it is hard to learn Unreal Engine if you're unlearning other things. So for me specifically, coming from Unity, there was a lot of things I had to try to unlearn in the beginning. So for me, the hardest thing to let go at the start was making game managers and player scripts, and the general object-oriented programming with C# is not the same with Unreal. You know, in Unity, you'll make a C# script, and that C# script is whatever you want it to be. You know, you'll write classes, you'll write all the things you need to be inside it, and that is what you have. You have your little script, and it is what you say it is. In Unreal, there are specific blueprints and things you need to use and make for them to work together. So learning all these new different things and understanding what I needed to create and make was something that for me personally, I had to kind of overcome, because I was used to just making a C# script and defining it myself of what it is, where in Unreal I had to figure out, okay, so this is a character controller, and this is another thing, and this is a weapon component, this is a root, and this is an NPC, and even things like blackboards and tasks. There are so many different components in Unreal you need to be aware of to actually make games, whereas in Unity you could just make a C# script and it didn't matter how messy or dirty it was. If it worked and you said, this is my game manager, this is my input system, this is my character controller, this is my camera state machine, whatever you wanted to make, you would make off of the base C# class. The other thing as well was dragging and dropping everything into the inspector. So in Unity, you'd make scripts, and to reference another script, you basically just drag and drop them by declaring them in each other's scripts. In Unreal, you can do that sometimes, but for a lot of things you can't, because if it's spawned on an instance, it doesn't work that way. Player prefabs and stuff are kind of a bit different in Unity compared to Unreal, where they are blueprints. And just being able to drag and drop things to reference them was something as well I had to unlearn. You have to learn more about casting, about interfaces. While going through forums, actually, that's something that really helped me understand and kind of help guide my way as I was traversing this new road that is Unreal Engine, and kind of feeling stuck at times, like I was forcing the engine to do something that it didn't want to do, or I was just like, in my head, it should work this way. Why doesn't Unreal provide me a way to do this? But they said, if you ever get stuck, or if you're having trouble doing something a certain way, you're probably doing it wrong, implying that there is an easier and better way to do it. So initially, when I was trying to reference different objects to each other, like how you would in Unity by, just dragging and dropping them in the inspector, or calling them within the script, I was doing a lot of casting and stuff. I did learn about interfaces, and I did learn about data tables and all these other sort of things. And once I learned how to use them, I was like, is this better than the way I was doing it in Unity? So in summary, the first 4 months, I would say, were the hardest to unlearn things and try to approach things differently. But now, after 10 months, I don't even think about it. I am comfortable in Unreal and how it is as a game engine. Though I would say at about 6 months, that's when I was like, Unreal's my engine. I'm happy in Unreal. But I would say that if you're struggling to use Unreal and not understanding it, and you want to, keep learning. I think the thing that stopped me previously was not wanting to learn Unreal Engine. I liked Unity. I wanted to stick with Unity. But now, because I wanted to learn Unreal, because I was done with Unity and I wanted to use its tools for future projects as well, after about 5-6 months, I felt more comfortable with it. And now it is my go-to game engine. Now, question number 2 that I seem to always get is, did Unreal have the support and tools I thought it would? The answer is yes, if not more. So like I said before, the forums are way larger and better supported than I thought. I know recently Unity's gone through this weird thing with the forums being closed or something weird like that, which I think is such a stupid idea, because holy crap, that's how I learned to use your engine, damn it. And that's how some of the most important people for that community were able to help others. There are plenty of video tutorials on YouTube, some that go through specific features you might want for your game, along with just basics of certain things you might not understand in Unreal, as well as super long, in-depth tutorials that just teach you everything and anything about a certain system. Like right now I'm going through one about how to save and load data in Unreal. It's quite a long video, but boy, is it juicy, and it's given me all the information I need. It is fantastic. I've learned to sit down, eat my lunch, and watch an Unreal video on how to do something. And each time I learn something new, even if it's just a little thing. But yeah, there's definitely online support for that. There are a lot of active Discord servers and channels and places where you can ask questions. People will just help you straight away. And the interesting thing to note is it's not just people who are using Unreal Engine to make games, but it's also people who are doing it for production. So people who do like videos on the internet about, different fandoms using MetaHuman, motion capture, any sort of production work. There's a lot of people out there who obviously they use things like blueprints and they understand the in and outs of Unreal. It basically gives Unreal's pool of people who can help you even more expansive because you got people obviously who make games and do things specifically, but then you get tech artists who do things like online production, whether it's working with Blender and Unreal to do different animations and shorts and VR experiences and all sorts of stuff. So the pool for help in Unreal is ever expanding and ever growing, and so there is plenty of support there. The third question I get asked is, do I regret switching from C# to Blueprints? And what about C++? The simple answer to this is no. I do not regret picking up Blueprints as my main programming method. Blueprints for me has been a lifesaver in my scenario. When I first switched to Unreal Engine, I was working mostly late at night. My brain was fried, and actually having visual nodes I could connect dots to were a lot easier and bearable for me late at night compared to writing actual code and making mistakes and doing things that I would not do in a clearer head scenario. People have also scared me a bit with saying, everything's literal spaghetti code because of the spaghettiness of things. Obviously, when you do more tech art start, it will probably get to be like that. But for me, in most instances, especially with a more simple game, I have not had that case. I've had quite clean, readable blueprints. And genuinely, they're very, very addictive. Like, I genuinely enjoy working in blueprints now. It's really fun. I do miss typing sometimes, however. But in that case, I just do like some web dev stuff, or I'll do side projects, play around with Godot. And occasionally, although C++ still terrifies me, I'm, just on that, I have to say, I'm more inclined to write something in C and C++ from scratch than to even using it Unreal for fear of breaking it. I do a little simple script in C++ just to try and get my appetite wet for it, and then I'll try and compile it, and then it won't compile properly, and then the project won't open, and then things will get corrupt, and then things will be missing because I'm trying to delete the things that aren't compiling properly. And it's a whole mess. It is terrifying to use C++. So for now, I won't be using C++ in my current project unless I absolutely have to. And mentioning about programming C#, Blueprints, C++, I do wish widgets and just Unreal's UI system had better documentation with different examples. Different things, for example, I want my UI to slide in from one state to another, but I don't want to do it through timelines or animation. I want to do it through code. And there's just certain things and use cases there where I could happily go back to C# and TextMesh Pro and, spend days in that because that was better documented and made more sense in terms of how it worked within the engine. Where, the widget and UI system in Unreal is a little complicated. And so I would love that to be more streamlined for Blueprints as well. And so generally, if you're a solo dev who does not love programming, who wants to try Blueprints, then you don't need to use C++ to use Unreal. I've never had to use it. Even when I'm like, I need C++ for something, usually it's just copying someone else's script, following tutorials on how to make a script like that, pasting the code, and making sure you can use it as a node within Blueprints. And that's as far as my extent has gone using C++ in Unreal. Obviously, because I want to upskill and eventually be an Unreal engineer for a studio, or be able to at least, I will be trying to learn C++ for Unreal. But because my current goal is to release a game on Steam, it's going to be through Blueprints because they get the job done. And it's a simple game. It doesn't need anything advanced or complicated. And I haven't found any real necessary need to use C++ as a solo dev, which is great because it means I could just keep using Blueprints forever if just every one of my games does well and I can just live off that. I would just use Unreal and Blueprints until the day I die. That's how happy I am with using Blueprints. Now, the fourth question I get asked a lot is there anything I miss in Unity that Unreal doesn't have? And quite simply, there are a few things. I do miss the editor and runtime debugging and testing. It's not like Unity where you can just drop things into a scene, run the game, and just move them within the editor and they change within the game. Unfortunately, it does not work like that in Unreal. Same with Godot. I know there's been discussions in Godot about them trying to implement that and whether or not they should or shouldn't. But that is one thing that I do just miss because with debugging and testing, it was a lot easier just to click on something within the scene preview and change an asset or move things here and there and then just see it in the game view work. So that's something I do still miss. The other thing I miss with Unity is WebGL and just being able to port things to the web. I know Unity's support has been waning on this, and Godot is probably a better option now for this, I think. But Unreal does not do that. There's been very, very little testing done with HTML and Unreal, and I hope in the future that they will maybe focus on this more, because I think it is something that Unreal definitely needs, especially considering they've got such good mobile support now, and people are kind of realizing now you can even use Unreal for 2D and some of the cool things you can do with that. I think the next thing really is getting back on the web, because I miss playing games on my browser that were actually fun. I miss the days of Flash, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. I wish we would have more Flash games, again, back on the internet. And the fact that Unreal doesn't do web stuff makes it harder for me when I do short little projects to just put them on itch, or things like game jams, where you can just put them, as a WebGL, at least with Unity and on Godot and stuff. Unreal doesn't have that, and I wish it really did. And the reason is because it's not as lightweight. Unreal doesn't really work well on my laptop because the laptop is a newer one. It's got Intel integrated graphics. There's no onboard GPU or anything. And so that's another thing where I'm like, man, Unity just would work on anything. And these are things like if I switch to Godot, I'd be perfectly fine with. But because it is Unreal Engine, it has certain things that I want within that engine. I'm happy with it, and it's the first-person engine that I want. I know my game right now is not first-person, but there are first-person games I want to make in the future, which by learning Unreal, I'm very excited to make. And so that's why I'm kind of sacrificing kind of the lightweightness of certain things. It's because in the future, there are games that are not lightweight that I want to make that I need to use Unreal Engine for. So that's why I'm still sticking with Unreal Engine. And the last two things I miss about Unity is actually ProBuilder. Although it was kind of buggy and a little bit jank, it did do things a bit more quickly, and I prefer more nicely than Unreal does. The best in-engine editor is Hammer, hands down. I think we can all agree. These things are all made, modeled within the engine of Source 2. Okay? Unity, Unreal, Godot, they're all missing something, and it's just this really in-depth 3D modeling program that just works within the engine. And ProBuilder was probably the closest thing. Unreal is trying, sort of did, and then they kind of forgot about it. I've seen people who are making assets for it in Unreal, but ProBuilder just, it was lightweight and simple and had Unity's approach of being accessible and easy to understand. And the last thing I missed with Unity was just how well Blender and animations worked in it. Yeah, I'll just say that, and that you can make a Blender file, put animations, import them into Unity. It would just work. With Unreal, you have to make the model, make animations. You then need to export it as an FPX or OBJ or whatever else, import it into Unreal. And then depending on whether or not it even registers the animations would then make us a whole other thing. Look, I'll say it. Using Blender with animations in Unity is a lot easier than using Blender with animations in Unreal as a solo dev. Okay, I get, again, the reason why Unreal is in certain ways is because it's a AAA game engine and big studios and powerhouses use it, and so they have certain methods and ways of doing things. But for solo devs, there's just certain things that we don't want or need, and other times we're just like, just save us time. Please, that's all we want. Just save us time. Just please save us time making animations and models. That's all I want is more time saved. And lastly, the question I get asked, probably not that often, but I want to share it with you anyways in this video, is things I love about Unreal Engine. Number one, ladies and gentlemen, for those who use Unity, it has a inbuilt input system which will not break, is not deprecated, is not new, is not old. It is just the input system. It is easy to use and understand, and it just works. Thank you. Thank you. As a previous Unity solo dev, thank you. Blueprints is another thing I love about Unreal. Blueprints, once you understand them and how to use them, you just feel so powerful. And there's just things, again, I think it really works with designers and specifically solo devs they help you see and reference everything. Anything that frustrated me with coding and the errors I would have because I was an idiot, I completely gone with Blueprints. They've basically idiot-proofed it for me, which I'm very grateful for it, and it helps me not make dumb, stupid mistakes as much. And if it does, then Unreal screams at me for it, which is good, because then I know, okay, I probably shouldn't do that. The other thing I love with Unreal is the AI system. So obviously you've got navigation meshed like with Unity, but I've also got things called blackboards and tasks, which is basically a whole state machine built in. So you don't need to make anything. It's just a lot more superior and nicer and better. And the core reason why I switched from Unity to Unreal was this very factor. Was that all these things that I was thinking of having to make myself in Unity were already existing in Unreal, and I could use them, and I've learnt them, and occasionally I'll get tripped up on something because of the way the flowcharts work, but most of the time, they are fantastic. I love them, and it just, yeah. And the thing I love most about Unreal is that everything is up to date and supported. Even things in preview, I feel like are more stable than most things are in Unity preview. Very rarely are things deprecated, and if they are, they kind of just exist there and they're always there for you to use because they know, different studios and people will want to use them. With Unity, in my past experience since leaving, it has felt like it doesn't matter if it is an old system or new system, it isn't finished. The old systems were out of date, even though you could still use them. They would deprecate them and say, we're not going to support them anymore. And the new stuff was so new that they didn't even have the things that the old system has that was deprecated now that doesn't support the other thing. So I feel like I've gone from an engine that had scaffolding while they added and removed things as they were progressing to an engine that is pretty damn built, but occasionally they'll refurbish something or take out something that's a bit old. But mostly they just add really cool, nice things. Like we've all seen, whenever Unreal unveils something, people are usually pretty excited because it's it's really awesome tech. So yeah, I have no regret switching to Unreal from Unity. And if you want to give it a fair go, then please do give it a try for at least a month. Try to make something start to finish to see all the benefits of the engine and see if it's the right tool for you. Because at the end of the day, that's all we're trying to find is the right tool that we need to make the games that we want to make. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and it's your first time, consider subscribing. I've also post devlogs on my cozy cafe game Coco Loco. I've also got a Discord server where we talk about things related to the game as well as Unreal Engine stuff. I plan on making a lot of future games in Unreal Engine, so if that's something that you are keen to watch, then please do follow along. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.